Alabama folk singer is dead after she was attacked by a pair of coyotes.
What is the monkey doing? Tell me what the monkey...
He hit your face off!
We actually have a trainer in the water with one of our whales.
If I show weakness, if I retreat, I may be hurt, I may be killed.
Baby Azaria Chamberlain was taken by a dingo back in 1980.
So what we have today is a list compiled of all fatal dog attacks in the United States between the years 2020 and 2023. So this is probably going to be a two-parter episode, potentially a three-parter episode, depending on how fast we go. Basically, yeah, this is a pretty comprehensive list of all documented deaths by dog attacks in the US. And I'll give you some statistics. So about 4.5 million Americans are bitten by dogs every year, which is a lot. It results in the hospitalization of between 6,000 and 13,000 people each year. And that statistic is taken from 2005. However, the trend seems pretty stable. It doesn't seem to go up or down very much. In 2018, a literature review with meta-analysis by breed focusing on dog bite injuries to the face, head and neck concluded that of cases where the breed was known, pit bull were the most responsible breeds for the highest percentage of reported bites across all studies, followed by mixed breed dogs and then German shepherds. That review also noted that injuries from pit bulls and mixed breed dogs were both more frequent and more severe. We've all heard that pit bulls are the most dangerous dogs. In fact, when I was growing up, I haven't heard it much recently, but when I was growing up, there was a lot of talk in Australia, and admittedly, I actually don't know much about this. There was a lot of talk about actually banning pit bulls. I think I have to look. Actually, let's do that now. This is the kind of episode where we can search up stuff live. So I'm going to Google Australian, Australian Podcast Awards. That just came up. No thanks. Australian Pit Bull ban. Let's look at that. Yeah, I remember growing up, there was a lot of talk about pit bulls being banned. Okay, we have a 2022 article, Ban Dogs in Australia. So apparently there are banned dogs in Australia. Let's have a look here. So okay, all right. So according to Australian law, it is illegal to import any of the following dog breeds. However, if you already own one, it is permitted under certain strict guidelines. The guidelines differ from state to state, but the overarching definition of restricted dog breeds in Australia are American Pit Bull Terrier, Perro de Presa Canarios, or Presa Carnalio, Dogo Argentinos, Japanese Tossas, and Fila Brasilarios. What the fuck? The only one I've ever heard of is the American Pit Bull. Okay, so if you do have one, you are required to desex them, including spaying and neutering. You have to microchip them. You have to have formal identification of a red and yellow collar. Warning signs must clearly be showcased to let others know that a restricted dog breed is on your premises. Housing must be both secure indoors and outdoors to prevent escape. Your dog must not be off a lead during walk at any time under any circumstance. Dogs must be muzzled and leashed when outside the premises. The council must be notified within 24 hours if the dog goes missing, the dog changes ownership, the dog's address changes, the place where the dog is kept changes, the municipality of the dog changes, as they may be subject to different regulations in different states. Prohibition of selling, giving away, or trading the dog except if the owner dies, or if the owner gives the dog to the council, pound, or local animal shelters. Okay, there you go. So the pit bull is a banned species in most of Australia, certainly in New South Wales, I think. We learned something today. Hooray! So injuries, illness, fatalities resulting from encounters with dogs are a huge public health concern worldwide. Dogs not only cause morbidity and mortality as a result of their bites, but they may also transmit zoonotic infections, which may result in illness or death. Dogs are the main source of rabies transmission to humans worldwide. It's estimated that between 3% and 18% of dog bite wounds become infected, with occasional cases of meningitis, endocarditis, and septic shock leading to deaths reported. Children have the greatest risk of death, followed by old people. So we're going to start our list now. We're going to start in 2020, and we'll see how we go. If we just do 2020 today, that is fine, and we'll cover the rest of the years in a later part. So this is a dynamic list, basically, that I'm going to read from. This is very similar to the Fatal Bear Attacks series, if you remember that. I think that was called Bears and Bloodshed in North America. This is Beware the Dog. Okay, so our first death on this list, and I don't know, by the way, I don't know why the list only starts in 2020, but it is quite comprehensive. So if this did go back to like the 1900s, we would be here forever. So it is kind of just as well. All right, so our first death on January 8th. The location was Talos Pueblo in New Mexico. The victim's name was Kay Torres. They were 52 years old, and they were killed by a pack of dogs. Here's what happened. Torres was found near an intersection on tribal lands after being attacked by a pack of dogs. The caller stated she fended off the dogs with a broom. The FBI reported that an autopsy performed on Torres concluded that she died from an apparent dog attack and not, as reported on social media, a homicide. Taos Pueblo is an Indian Taos Pueblo is an Indian reservation. Are you allowed to call it that? I'm just reading the list. Don't yell at me if that's not the correct terminology. Native American reservation, Indian reservation, I'm not sure what they prefer to call it. With a large population of dogs owned by residents and permitted to roam freely, according to Torres' sister. Okay. The next death occurred on January 9th in Dayton, Ohio. Mackenzie Turwell was the victim, and sadly, she was 4 months old. I should mention that a lot of these people are going to be children and toddlers and babies, so if that does make you uncomfortable, maybe best to find another episode to listen to, because I do not see it getting better. Mackenzie was killed by a pit bull type dog. Around midnight, the father of Mackenzie called 911 after he returned to the home and found his daughter on the floor unresponsive. The commissioner of the Violent Crimes Bureau stated that the child had been attacked by the family dog and died from her injuries. The coroner ruled that the death was an accident and stated the child died from blood loss. The incident is currently under investigation by the Special Victims Unit. SVU? Detective Stable is looking into it. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Anyway, January 10th, Donald Abner was a 55-year-old man who died in Rockcastle County in Kentucky by a pit bull attack. Police were called to the home after a neighbor called 911. They found Abner in the backyard being attacked by the dog and its owner, Melissa Wolke, 38 years old. Wolke was sitting on Abner and punching him in the face while the dog attacked him. Wolke had to be tased to remove her from Abner's body, and the police put down the overly aggressive dog named Denali. The victim had bite wounds on his head and face. Wolke was charged with murder. That's crazy. That's a wild story. Let's see if we've got we have some... Okay. I'm going to read a news article about that. I won't do this for all the stories, but for ones that are kind of fucking wild, like that one. This is a news article from ABC 36, WTVQ. I'm just going to read this article. It's not too long. Update. Victim identified as suspected dog attack. Conway, Kentucky. A woman is charged with murder after beating a man and encouraging a pit bull to attack the victim, according to Kentucky State Police. Investigators say they were called to the backyard of a home on Pug Lane in the Conway community of Castle Rock County on Friday. They found a 36-year-old woman named Melissa Wolke of Mount Vernon on top of the man punching him. They say she was commanding her pit bull to attack the man at the same time. That man has now been identified as 55-year-old Donald W. Abner of Richmond. The Rockcastle coroner pronounced Abner dead at the scene. KSP, Kentucky State Police, says Wolke had to be tased to get her off the victim and that she refused to call off the dog. As a result, the dog had to be shot and killed. That's fucked. Jesus Christ, what a bitch. God, sorry. An autopsy is scheduled Saturday to determine Abner's manner and cause of death. I'm guessing it was probably the fucking dog attacking it or the woman punching him in the face. Wolke was arrested and charged with murder and other charges and taken to Rockcastle County Jail, according to KSP. The investigation continues, including looking into a motive for the attack. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, this article does not have the motive. That's interesting. Okay, wild. Oh, God, I've literally closed the tab I needed. That sucks. Okay, hold on. All right, we're going to move on. I think our fourth attack is this one happened in Indiana in the town of Lafayette on January 25th. The victim's name was Julian Connell, and he was 1 year old. He was 1 month old. My God. The 1 month old was killed by a pit bull mix. So the pit bull mix was fighting with a beagle mix in the family home. The teenage son had removed the beagle from the room to get it away from the pit bull. The pit bull mix then attacked the baby. The coroner stated that the 1 month old Julian died from multiple sharp, catastrophic injuries to his head and neck. The boy's mother was sentenced to 1 year in jail after pleading guilty to neglect of a dependent resulting in bodily injury. That's fucking sad. Jesus Christ. Okay. Moving on. Our next victim, his name was Harvey Harmon Jr. He was 76 years old. He was attacked by 4 dogs, 2 pit bulls and 2 mixed breeds in Atala County in Mississippi on January 30th. The victim was pulled out. Oh God! The victim was pulled out of his wheelchair by 4 dogs and mauled to death in his front yard in the Palestine community. The 2 pit bulls belonged to Harmon's nephew, and the 2 mixed breeds were strays that hung around the area. 3 of the 4 dogs were put down by a veterinarian at the scene. The 4th, one of the strays, escaped. Jesus Christ, that is a bad way to go, man. Being pulled out of your wheelchair and essentially mauled to death. God damn. Okay. The next victim is another child. His name was Sterling Vermeer. I'm going to try to pronounce these names as correctly as I can. 5 years old. Died on February 10th in Oro Grande in California. The family pit bull named Thor, killed Sterling in the family home. The 5-year-old was dead by the time the police arrived. A family member called 911 stating that the pit bull attacked the child and would not let go. Our next one was from Plainville, Illinois. So where have we had so far? Let's just count these states. Well, 1 of each so far. We've had New Mexico, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Mississippi, California, and now Illinois. On February 11th, Devin White, a 25-year-old, was killed in an unprovoked attack. The family pit bull attacked the victim and 3 other adults, a 52-year-old woman, a 25-year-old woman, and a 19-year-old man. All 4 victims were taken to the hospital. But White later succumbed to the severe injuries received when his pit bull mauled him after he tried to stop the attack on the other people in the home. This, you know what? This goes to show, I can totally see how a pit bull, just one pit bull, could kill a child or an old person. But I'm 29. I'm relatively built. I've got a bit of a sloppy rig, but I'm okay. And I've always, if I was attacked by a dog, I would go to hospital. I'd be bitten really badly, but I think I could beat a dog in a fight. But this pit bull attacked 4 people, including 2 25-year-olds and a 19-year-old. So it just kind of goes to show the ferocity of these animals, and how even if you're in the prime of your life, 25. You're not necessarily guaranteed to walk away from one of these things if they attack you. It's pretty brutal. Our next victim was from Kentucky. On February 18th in Knott County, Kentucky, Corey Godsley, a 13-year-old, was attacked by a pack of feral dogs. The victim was killed by dogs on a rural hillside. An investigation by state police led to the DNA matches with several feral dogs at a nearby mine site. On February 23rd, and remember, these are all in 2020, just in case you are not sure what year these are in. These are all 2020. In Crawford County, Georgia, Lee Alvin Beecham, who was a 76-year-old, was killed by 3 dogs, 2 pit bulls, and a Labrador mix. The victim was found dead outside his home with dog bites. Autopsy confirmed the cause was traumatic injuries due to a dog attack. The neighbors were arrested 2 weeks later and charged with involuntary manslaughter. The 3 dogs were confiscated. On February 27th at Shreveport, Louisiana, Geraldine Hamlin, a 64-year-old woman, was killed by 2 pit bulls. Hamlin was attacked by the 2 family pit bulls in her home she shared with her son and died as a result of her injuries. Notice how many of these are people's pets as well. On March 3rd in Chipley, Florida, Beverly Jean Dove, 60 years old, was killed by a pack of dogs. The victim was attacked by a pack of at least 5 dogs while walking near the assisted living facility of which she was a resident. The dogs lived on a nearby property and were not strays. All of the dogs were captured by animal control. This next one doesn't have any much information, but what information it does have is it's very brutal. This might be one. Maybe skip forward 30 seconds if you really don't want to hear what happened to this 2-year-old. On March 9th in Portsmouth, Virginia, Demi Witherspoon, a 2-year-old, was killed by a pit bull. The family dog bit the child's face completely off. There are links to some articles about that. I am not going to read those. There's audio snips from the fucking police. I'm not going to listen to that. That's fuck. You can listen to it if you want to. I'll link to this article, but I'm not going to play that. That's not going to be good. God, we're only up to April. Remember, these are all in the same year. We're only 4 months into the year. April, Portland, Oregon. Frederick Shue was a 70-year-old who died from an attack from a mastiff. What's a mastiff again? I want to see what that animal looks like. Oh, they're like those big, gross dogs. Yeah. A mastiff is a large and powerful type of dog. Mastiffs are among the largest of dogs and typically have a short coat, a long, low-set tail, and large feet. The skull is large and bulky, the muzzle broad and short, and the ears drooping and pendant-shaped. Yikes. This person was killed by one of those. The victim was killed by his own dog after going to bed. The victim's housemate heard a large noise, and when he went to check on it, he found the dog biting and shaking the victim's neck. The housemate was able to wrestle the dog away from the victim, however, it was too late, and the victim died from the bite wounds before paramedics arrived. The dog had a history of aggression and was previously involved in several bite-related incidents. The dog was seized by authorities and was euthanized the next day. God, imagine getting eaten in your own sleep by your fucking own pet. My cat is just sitting watching me, and I'm thinking that's what she wants to do. Luckily, she's a fucking pussy. She's tiny. I could punt her across the room. It's fine. If my girlfriend ever listens to this episode, she'll be really mad that I said that. But she doesn't, so it's fine. April 12th in Fort Worth, Texas. Sharon Renee Baldwin was a 60-year-old woman who was killed by a pit bull. The elderly wheelchair-using woman... I'm just going to pause. 60 years old is not elderly. I wouldn't say. My parents are 60. They're not elderly. Anyway, the elderly wheelchair-using woman was attacked on March 28th by a dog in the household that bit her arm, shoulder, and neck. Her death 2 weeks later was listed as mauling by canine. The dog was held for 2 weeks and then euthanized. Memphis, Tennessee is the location of our next attack. It occurred on April 22nd. The victim's name was Doris Arrington. She was 59 years old. The victim was found dead after being attacked, and 4 dogs covered in blood were discovered in a nearby house. 3 people, the owners of the dogs, were indicted and arrested on reckless homicide charges. The dogs have been the subject of several previous aggressive incident complaints, and all 4 were euthanized. All 4 were also pit bulls. It's interesting how many of these dogs had previously been involved in these bites. It's very sad when a dog attacks a person or bites a person, because it's that classic thing of, I don't want my dog to get found out for biting this kid because it'll get put down. And obviously that's super sad, and I'm not in favor of any animal sort of getting put down. But in these instances, it really kind of has to happen. Because it's just a show of the behavior of the dog. Now, obviously, it's really important to prevent your dog from biting people in the first place. But when it happens, I think that a lot of times they do it again, and to devastating effect when the victim dies. So, it may be for the best in those cases. On May 7th in Lyons, Georgia, Nancy Shaw, 62 years old, was killed by 4 dogs, but the breed of the dog has been unreleased by doctors. A local doctor was found lying dead in a ditch with her car door open and the engine still running. She had been attacked by dogs. 3 dogs were found and seized. A 4th dog had been killed by a neighbor. On May 9th in Fox Lake, Michigan, Fox Lake, Illinois, Lisa Urso, 52 years old, was killed by a French Bulldog mix, possibly a Shorty Bull. The victim was found unresponsive on the back patio of her home with multiple dog bite-related injuries after being attacked by her family dog. The dog had been involved in 2 previous bite incidents, one of which had required her boyfriend to seek medical attention after the dog bit him. The next victim's name was Robert Taylor. He was a 9-year-old boy from Mount Vernon, Arkansas. On May 28th, he was killed by 2 pit bulls. The boy was mauled and killed by the neighbor's pit bulls when he had gone outside to check the mail. The dogs had been aggressive in the past. The dog's owner was arrested on a felony tampering with physical evidence charge. That's interesting. Maybe there's more information about that. Nope, there's not. Okay, never mind. On the 31st of May, Skylar Hedrick was killed. She was 11 years old, and she was a resident of Murray County in Georgia. She was killed by two dogs, Neapolitan Mastiffs. So, again, really big animals. The victim was attacked by the two family dogs and was found deceased by her older sister on the basement floor of her home with injuries consistent with dog bites. The victim's family stated that the two dogs were never aggressive towards anyone before. The dogs were surrendered and are no longer with the family. I should hope so. Stockton, California is the location of our next victim. Again, a child, a 2-year-old named Bryce Sanders, was killed by a pit bull on June 1st. He died on June 1st. The toddler was attacked by a dog on May 31st and mauled. He was transported to a hospital and died the following day. The next victim was 70 years old. Her name was Katie Amos from Country Club Hills, Illinois. That sounds like a very fancy place. Country Club Hills in Illinois. Police arrived during the attack of 4 dogs on an elderly woman in the yard. She was taken to hospital and pronounced dead. The dogs belonged to the victim and her relatives. 1 dog was killed on the scene and another of the 3 dogs was confiscated. That attack occurred on June 3rd, by the way. Only a few days later, on June 11th, a undisclosed boy, no name, but he was 6 weeks old, was killed in Hartford, South Dakota, by a Belgian Malinois. Malinois? It's a Belgian shepherd. It's like a German shepherd, but from Belgium. The infant was bitten several times by the family dog. He was flown to a hospital where he later died. The dog was seized. On June 28th in Mandeville, Louisiana, Barbara Cook, a 72-year-old, was killed. The victim was killed after being attacked by her daughter's 2 pit bulls near Mandeville, Louisiana. At the time of the attack, Barbara was babysitting her grandson and put herself between her grandson and the dog in an attempt to protect him. Okay. So Barbara died a hero. That's good. Oh, God. This next one is the kid didn't even have a name. It's just called Baby Jonah. The baby was 23 months old, which I guess you could just say is 2 years old, but whatever. June 29th in Hunt County, Texas, Baby Jonah was killed by a pit bull. The toddler had gotten out of his enclosed yard unnoticed and was attacked in the street by a neighbor's dog, which escaped its 4-foot chain link fenced yard. The child was transported to hospital but did not survive his injuries. The dog was seized. On July 1st, in Jeffersonville, Indiana, Donald Ryan, a 62-year-old, was killed by a pit bull. The victim was still being attacked by at his home by his own dog when responders arrived. After trying pepper spray, a police officer shot the dog, trying to stop the attack. The next person is another... Oh, God. The next 3 are babies, straight up. A 1-year-old, Marley Willander. From, I don't know how to pronounce this one, Joliet, Illinois, or Joliet, Illinois, or Joliet, Illinois, I'm not sure. On July 5th, they died from an attack from a pit bull mix. The 1-year-old was attacked in an upstairs bedroom in the middle of the night. Jesus. The child's family had been visiting the household for a July 4th party, and the household dog's been confined to the basement. God. Another baby named Scarlett was a 1-year-old from East Providence, Rhode Island, was attacked by a pit bull. In an unprovoked attack, the family dog attacked the child when the adults went outside for lunch and placed the child on the ground. 2 adults were injured trying to intervene in the attack. Responders were unable to capture the dog, which was loose in the backyard and later climbed onto the roof and shot it. Oh, okay, that's poorly written, but the police climbed onto the roof and shot the dog. The last of the 3 children in this little grouping was a 7-month-old, and we do not know his name, but he was a baby boy, attacked by a pit bull on August 7th in Akron, Ohio. And there's not much information here. It just says the child was attacked by the 7-year-old family dog while in the arms of his great-grandmother. I can't imagine the great-grandmother fared very well there either. This is a more brutal series than I was hoping. I'm like quietly depressed at a lot of these, and we're only halfway through the year, or a little bit further than halfway through the year. These are more brutal, I think, than the bear attacks, because at least with the bear attacks, not so many of them were like little kids. Okay, moving on. August 28th was the next attack. Literally only 2 days. Oh no, I've skipped one. Sorry. Okay, August 26th, Belleville, Illinois. Stephen Pemberton Sr., 61 years old, was killed by 2 pit bulls. The victim was attacked by 2 dogs in his home. The 2 dogs were usually kept in the laundry room where the dog's owner, the victim's 45-year-old stepson, left the house. The stepson's wife and other adult remained shut in another room during the attack and phoned the dog's owner, who arrived home to find his stepfather dead. I would probably say call the police before you call the fucking owner, but anyway. 2 days later, in Florida, in a town called Margate, Carolyn Varanese, I'm going to hope that's how I pronounce the name, Varanese, 84 years old, was killed by an American Bulldog or Pit Bull mix, we're not sure. The victim was killed in her home by the dog that her son had adopted only a few weeks earlier. Her son was injured trying to stop the attack. The dog was seized by animal control and euthanized. Notice how many of these attacks happen in the home as well. This is why these attacks are so sad, because they're from family members, essentially. They're from your pets. You have to be really careful with dogs before you bring them in your home, especially if you've got kids or old parents living with you. This next one, there's quite a bit of information on it. It happened on September 11th in 2020. We don't know the name of the person. Undisclosed person, but they were 70 years old in McCurtain County, Oklahoma. 2 pit bulls were the aggressors. An elderly woman was killed by 2 pit bull dogs when she was dropped off by her daughter at her other daughter's house. The elderly woman suffered extremely severe facial lacerations and a partially amputated leg. The woman's 2 daughters were also bitten, and all 3 women were transported to a hospital. The elderly woman's vital signs crashed during transportation to a regional hospital. She was taken back to the original hospital, where she was declared deceased. A family member euthanized the dogs. Jeez, probably with a gun. It's Oklahoma. Family members requested original news article be removed from a website. Interesting. Okay, the 29th. So a couple of weeks after, in Gray Court, South Carolina, Jacqueline Robinson, who was 32 years old, that's our latest victim, she was killed by 3 dogs, 3 pit bull mixes. The victim was killed by 3 dogs while walking along a lane. The dogs were seized from a nearby property. The dog's owner was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter and 3 counts of possessing a dangerous animal. The next month in October 8th, in Moses Lake, Washington, Zachary S. Willis was killed. He was 27-year-old. Another 27-year-old male you'd think would be able to handle a dog attack, but no, these animals are quite powerful. This was a pit bull or mixed pit bull. One man was killed and another woman seriously injured. The dog lived at the home with the victims, another one in the house. On October 14th, this is interesting, at Schofield Barracks. So I imagine that's an army barracks or Schofield Barracks is a United States Army installation located in the city and county of Honolulu. Okay, obviously, so this is Hawaii. But obviously our first death on an army barracks. Fuck. I was kind of thinking, oh, damn, this dog attacked like a fucking soldier. Unless they recruit 3 to 4 month-year-old babies as soldiers, that's not the case. We don't know the dog that attacked them. An infant suffered head injuries when it was attacked at home by a dog and was pronounced dead at the Triple Army Medical Center. Reports differ on whether the infant was 3 or 4 months old. It doesn't really matter at that point. October 19, only 5 days later, in Nauvoo, Alabama, Ruthie Mae Brown, 36 years old, was killed by an unspecified breed of dog, but there was 5 of them. At least 5 of them, 5 plus. This one sounds like it wasn't in the house. The victim was killed by a pack of dogs while walking down Jagger Road. 2 of the animals were turned in by their owner, while 3 others were captured. The pack was familiar to people who lived in the area, and a witness stated the victim was attacked by 7 or 8 dogs. On October 23rd, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Curtis Wickham, another 26-year-old, was killed by 3 pit bulls. These pit bulls attacked Curtis Wickham after he got into a fight with the dog's owner, Benjamin Spence. Wickham died from his injuries at the hospital. Police arrested Spence after prosecutors charged him with second-degree murder for ordering his dogs to attack Wickham. Fucking hell. All right, that one requires a follow-up. Let's see. There's 2 man in Connecticut, 2 deadly dog attack to appear in court. All right, let's read this. This is from News 9. Okay. The article is from December 4th, 2020, so it's a bit of an update. Okay. The headline is "Man in Connection to Deadly Dog Attack to Appear in Court." A Tulsa man in connection with a dog mauling death that took place in late October is scheduled to appear in court on Monday. According to jail records, Benjamin Spence was arrested and booked into jail on Thursday evening and will appear in court on Friday. Spence was arrested after a warrant was issued in connection to the death of Curtis Wickham in early November. The incident that left one person dead took place in late October near West Admiral Boulevard and North 50th West Avenue, Tulsa. According to police, Spence got his 3 dogs to attack Wickham while the victim was laying on the ground. Spence dropped a television on his head. Wickham... Fuck me. God damn. I'm going to read that again. According to police, Spence got his 3 dogs to attack Wickham while the victim was laying on the ground. Spence dropped a television on his head. Wickham died later from his injuries. Spence has been charged with second-degree murder and assault with a dangerous weapon. Spence's bond totals more than $500,000. Okay, what a piece of shit. I hope he went to jail. October 26th, only 3 days later, from that attack in Hampton, Virginia, an undisclosed infant of an undisclosed name was killed by a German Shepherd. A German Shepherd killed an infant while the baby was sleeping in their parents' bedroom. The baby's father woke during the attack and killed the dog immediately after. Yeah, I imagine you'd be so angry that you would do that. It kind of reminds me of that story early on in the podcast of Gypsy the python that ate that baby, or tried to eat that baby, and the parents killed it or tried to kill it afterwards. That snake is fine, by the way. We're up to our final 4 for this reading, and I think what we'll do is we'll probably leave it at 2020 for today, and we'll do 2021 next week. So yeah, our 4th final one for today. This happened between November 17th and 18th in Florida, in a town called Bascom. The victim was 65 years old. His name was Donald Allen Sr., and he was killed by a pack of dogs. The pack of dogs killed the victim at some time during the night of November 17th to 18th while he was walking along an isolated dirt road. Law enforcement authorities later released trail cam photos of the dog pack believed to be responsible for the killing. On December 11th in Battle Lake, Minnesota, that's a cool name, Battle Lake, Minnesota, Deon? D-E-O-N, I think that's Dion. Dion Bush, who was 14 years old, was killed by a German Shepherd. The victim was killed when he went outside in the backyard to care for a male dog his family kept for breeding purposes. The dog was euthanized at the family's request. 6 days later, on the 17th of December, in Joliet, Illinois. That may be the first time we've repeated a town, not just a state, but a town. Eric J. Quinn, 46 years old, was killed by a pit bull. The victim was killed when he tried to calm the 5-year-old dog, which had become agitated when 2 women in the home Quinn were visiting began arguing about money. And the final death in 2020 occurred about 11 days before the year was over. On December 20th in Tallahassee, Florida, an undisclosed female of undisclosed age was killed by a pit bull. The victim was trying to stop 2 pit bulls from fighting when she was attacked by a 3rd pit bull. There were 4 adult pit bulls and 9 3-week-old pit bull puppies living at the home. I mean, like I kind of said at the outset, I don't think any dog breeds are necessarily bad, but fuck, man, to live with... What is that? That's 13 pit bulls. I mean, that's not necessarily smart. Okay, so that is every single documented death that we could find in 2020 from dog attacks. Clearly pit bulls, the vast majority of the deaths were from pit bulls or mixes, but also mastiffs and French bulldogs played a part as well. So pretty wild. A lot of very, very sad stories there, especially in regard to the children that died. I would say like at least a third of these were babies or children. Really sad. We're going to continue to listen. So just like last week, I'm going to read from the earliest fatality in 2021, which occurred in January, all the way through to the most recent one that happened at the end of 2021. We will stop if there are stories that we find really interesting, and we'll see if we can find news articles or other sources just to get into a little bit of depth of that. As with last week, of course, and I kind of mentioned it in the introduction of this episode, this episode will inevitably talk about the death of children. some people ask me to do like a little bit of a content warning there, so I'm gonna. That's what this is. If you don't like listening to talk of children dying, being attacked, yeah, like it's inevitable in this episode. Maybe go listen to another one. Although, to be honest, so many of our stories end up like this, so it's kind of unavoidable. So if we're ready, let's jump into it. So our first attack occurred in Bronson in South Carolina. The date was January 20th, and the victim's name was Cameron Hatfield. He was 6 years old when he was attacked by a pit bull. Hatfield was killed at home by the dog, which was later seized and euthanized by animal control authorities. The victim's mother had recently taken the dog in as a stray and was trying to find a new home for it. That's obviously really sad that it wasn't even their dog. They were just like trying to do the right thing and, keeping it. If you can hear cars in the background being really loud, I apologize. I recently discovered I live next to a mental asylum, and that's the ambulance come to take people away to the mental asylum. Okay, the next attack occurred about 20 days later. Yeah, February 10th, roughly 20 days later, February 10th, in Nebraska, in a county called Kearney. We don't know the victim's name. Unfortunately, she was 1 month old. So yeah, one of the youngest people on this list, a month old. An American Bulldog was the culprit here, and I think that might be the first time on this entire list that the culprit has been a bulldog, actually. So the victim died of blunt force and cranial trauma inflicted by the dog. The dog was later euthanized. 5 days later, on the 15th of February in Porter, Texas, Dean Stephenson, I think it's Stevenson, but it's spelled like Stefansson. And Dean spelled weirdly with two N's. This was a 59-year-old man, and he was killed by a pack of 4 dogs, a hound, a German shepherd, and a blackmouth cur. With the 3 types of dogs there, but there were 4 dogs. Stevenson was killed while walking to the store when the dogs attacked her after... Oh, Dean. Maybe it's Diane. Dean? I don't know, attacked her after escaping through an open gate from a landscaping company's fenced-in property. The dog's owner was cited for failure to provide proof of rabies vaccinations and for failing to contain them. Animal control authorities euthanized the dogs after the owner surrendered them. Yeah, so last week, basically the standard story is, if I had to boil down the average dog attack in this list, it's a old person or a young person attacked by a dog that was not kept securely in a property that was either a pet or a stray that had been was being looked after by someone. Usually the dog's not super acclimated to the family as well. And they attack someone, and then they get euthanized, and the owner typically gets charged with criminal fines. I'm going to turn my phone on to silent. That was unprofessional of me. I'm going to buy you all a case of beer for that. Okay, now the next attack occurred nearly a month later, so we did go nearly a month without another attack. Unfortunately, in March 16th in Carteret, that sounds right. Carteret in New Jersey, a boy named Aziz Ahmed, who was 3 years old, was attacked by 2 pit bulls. Ahmed and his mother were in their own fenced-in backyard when the dogs attacked them after digging under the fence from the adjoining yard. The boy was evacuated by helicopter and died of his injuries at a local hospital, while his mother was hospitalized with serious injuries. The dogs were shot and killed by police who responded to the incident. A couple days later in Springfield, Illinois, a boy named, this is a tricky one. This is March 19th, a 1-year-old boy. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce this first name. I've never seen it before. I'm just going to spell it. It's A''Myrikl. It's like A. Mercurial, Jolin Hull. It was a 1-year-old. He was killed by a pit bull Patterdale Terrier mix. So the boy was bitten on the head. I'm so sorry, it's a girl. I'm sorry. She was bitten on the head when she got too close to the dog while it was eating and died at the hospital. Family members said the dog had no violent history with humans or with dogs. That's a really sad one. I remember when I was a kid, I grew up with a dog. Her name was Sasha, and she was super gentle. She never bit anyone ever. She never hurt anyone. Super, super gentle. And then when she passed away, we had another dog named Rosie. Again, super gentle. But even as a little kid, my parents said, dude, when a animal's eating, right? It's focused on that. You can't fuck with the dog when it's eating because it will, it doesn't look at you like a family member anymore. It looks at you like a threat trying to take its food. And I really early learned that on. But of course, this kid was 1 year old. They didn't have a chance to learn that. So Yeah, it's really sad. April 1st in I think it's Cock County. Is it Cook County or Cock County? I'm going to call it Cock County because it's kind of funnier. In Tennessee, Tony Arens, who was 52 years old, was attacked by a pack of dogs. His body was found by the side of the road with lacerations and flesh missing from his arm. Authorities were unable to find the dogs that killed him. That's wild. Okay, that might be one of the first stories today that we're going to look at. Okay, okay, there is a link to a article here from a local news channel. So we're going to see if we can find anything here. Oh, interesting. Okay, so apparently the attack I just read you about was one of two attacks that had occurred recently. So I'm just going to read the article. 2 people died after separate attacks by dogs or other animals along Jimtown Road in Cock County, prompting authorities to warn travelers to use caution in the area as the investigation continues. The first attack happened on April 1st and resulted in the death of Tony Arens, 52. That's the person we just talked about. According to the report, an official responded to Jimtown Road when he found an unresponsive man identified as Arens on the side of the road. The report described Arens as heavily injured. The male had lacerations across his entire body and flesh missing from his arm, the report said. A second victim, 29-year-old Amber Miller, was attacked on July 12th. According to the reports, officials were told by witnesses that Miller was found at 522 Jimtown Road asking for help. 3 dogs were spotted around Miller, licking the wounds where she'd been attacked, the report said. Witnesses were able to take Miller to the hospital where medical staff described her injuries as severe, noting her calf was ripped off and her arms were barely attached to her body, the report said. Yikes. I'll leave it there, but yeah, that's brutal, man. Okay, we might come up, I think Miller might be later on this list if she died. If she didn't, obviously she won't be. So 26 days later, after the attack of Tony Arens across the country in North Carolina, actually, I shouldn't say across the country. I don't know the geography of the states that well. Is Tennessee near North Carolina? I honestly couldn't tell you. Anyway, in North Carolina, in a city or a town called Garner, which is in Wake County, I'm reading, a 7-year-old named Jaden Bell Henderson died after being attacked by 2 pit bulls. Heather Travakis and her daughter, Jaden Bell Henderson, were taking care of the pit bulls while the dogs' owners were out of town. The dogs were seized by animal control authorities and euthanized after a court ruled the city did not have to return the dogs to their owners. Yeah, that's sad. April 30th, only 3 days later, across the country again in Fort Worth, Texas. I've heard of Fort Worth before. Where is Fort Worth? It's the 5th largest city in Texas. I've learned something. Elia Brown, who is a 4-year-old, she was attacked by a mixed breed dog. Brown was killed in a home's backyard by the family dog. The dog was seized and euthanized by animal control authorities. It is honestly so fucking devastating to hear when it's the pet of the family. A lot of times these animals, they're not super acclimated to the family. They're like one of those stories earlier, recently brought into the family, or it was a stray that was recently brought into the family and they're trying to find a new home for it. It was like picked up from the pound and it would only been there for a week or two and they attack someone. You got to be really careful with these animals. It would obviously be much more, I mean, a dead kid's a dead kid. Honestly, you're going to feel horrible either way, but if you had the pet for 20 years and it suddenly turned around and did this, I would imagine that would be worse. But at that point, it's like everything sucks already. It doesn't really matter at that point, does it? On May 7th, so we're out of April, we're into May. This can't be Sulphur. There is a city in Louisiana called Sulphur. Crazy. Okay, Sulphur in Louisiana. Sounds stinky. 27-year-old Dustin Vincent was killed by 3 pit bulls. Vincent was attacked when he went to visit a relative and he entered the backyard where the dogs were, despite being warned by the property owners not to do so. He suffered severe wounds to his head, face, and legs and was in a critical condition after being airlifted to hospital. He died from his injuries on May 11th. So we never victim blame on this show, obviously. But we do point out when there has been a fault that has occurred that has led to a death. Victim blaming is not helpful, but it does. In this instance, at the very least, it doesn't seem like total negligence from the owners of the dogs. By warning him not to go through the back. It doesn't really matter when someone dies, but I feel like it's worth mentioning and noting there. On 2 days later in Whitehall, Montana, Elliot Sherwin, he's a 4-year-old, he died from an attack of 2 Rottweilers. Sherwin was declared dead at the scene after 2 dogs attacked him at his grandparents' house. Both dogs were euthanized. On May 10th, wow, not even a day later, in Norwich, Connecticut, Carter Settles, 1 month old. I hate the 1 month old. Pitbull Mix was the dog that did the attack. Settles was being held by a relative when the dog jumped up and inflicted multiple traumatic injuries. The boy was pronounced dead at the scene, and the dog was seized by law enforcement authorities, who announced it would be euthanized. That's fucking devastating. Wow. The dog leapt up into the arms of a relative. That's crazy, man. Jesus. Yeah. Wow. We have in May, look, we have a streak in May. May 7th, May 9th, May 10th, and now on May 11th, in Big Spring in Texas. I wonder if there's a Big Spring in Big Spring. John Henry. He wasn't a child, thank goodness. He was 46 years old, and he was killed by a pitbull mix. One thing I want to mention, and I mentioned this last week as well, is even though the majority of these deaths are young children or elderly people, physically capable, healthy 20, 30, 40-year-olds can also be attacked and killed by dogs. I mentioned in the last episode, I like to think if I was attacked by a dog, I'm a pretty big guy, and I feel like I can handle myself, that I would be able to win some sort of fight with a dog. You can't. I mean, you can, but these animals are so vicious when they go into attack mode, and they're so fast, man, and they can rip you to pieces. Yeah, it's difficult to survive these kind of things, and this 46-year-old didn't, even though I assume they were oh god, no, you know what? I should have read the story before I started going off on that tangent. Henry died after suffering a heart attack that investigators attributed to being attacked by the dog. Oh, okay. I misread that. I thought it was like he had a heart attack and he passed out and the dogs ate him or something. That's awful. No, he suffered a heart attack while being attacked by the dogs, which is crazy. Which also attacked one of 2 neighbors who tried to drive it off. The dog was eventually frightened away by police gunfire, and its owner later surrendered the dog to animal control for euthanasia. Yikes. I will mention, we're not even halfway through the year, the year on this list. I feel like there are more deaths in 2021 and 2022 than there were in 2020. And my theory is that COVID plays into that a little bit. Obviously with COVID, I don't know if it even makes sense. My theory was, obviously, with COVID, we're not going out as much, we're staying home, we're not fraternizing. There's a less chance of running into a pit bull or a dog. But so many of these attacks happen in their home with dogs that are familiar to you. So I don't even know if that is a good theory. Maybe there's another reason. I don't know. If I were to guess why there's less attacks in 2020, I would say COVID. I would say lockdowns are probably part of it. But, yeah, I mean, maybe not. Who knows? If you have a better suggestion, let me know. On May 16th in Fort Defiance, Arizona, that is a fucking great name, dude. Fort Defiance. That's kick-ass. Where is that? Sorry, I love the place names in America. You got great place names. We've got place names like Woolloomooloo, which is like, I guess is a beautiful indigenous Australian name, but can we be real? It sounds a little silly in English. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. Apache country in Arizona. It is also located within the Navajo Nation. Yeah, cool. Man, American place names are cool. I love it. If you live in America and you're listening and you live in a town with a cool place name, let me know, because I want to be friends with you. Back to the sadness. This 13-year-old person died. Her name was Lisa Rose Upshaw. She was killed by a pack of dogs. Upshaw was killed while she was walking near her home, which lies within the Navajo Nation. Family members searching for her were also attacked by dogs, as were police responding to the call that her body was found, according to Upshaw's mother. Animal control authorities seized 12 dogs found in a locked building near the location where her body was found as evidence. That is 12. Oh my god. I've got to follow this one up and read an article here. I don't know if this means she was attacked by 12 dogs, but being attacked by a pack of 12 dogs, that's horrifying, man. Oh, fuck. She's such a cute kid, too. There's a photo of her here. She's beautiful. It's so sad. This is quite a long article. I'm going to see if there's anything worth reading out. It's not even a news article. It's kind of like a well, it is. It's from the Navajo Times, but it's written kind of more like a blog post. Yeah, I'm not going to read this. You can look this up if you're interested. And yeah, it's sad. It's different when you see a photo of the people. Honestly, it's brutal. Okay, so in May 24th in New Mexico, I do know New Mexico and Arizona are close, so just popping over to Veguta, New Mexico, Jose Ortega, 53 years old, he was killed by 4 pit bull mixers. Ortega was killed at the house where he was being paid to water the outdoor plants. A deputy sheriff shot one of the 4 dogs. Animal control authorities seized and euthanized all the dogs found at the scene, including 6 pit bull mix puppies that were found to be too aggressive to be adopted. That's fucking sad. The dog's owner was charged with felony possession from a dangerous dog that caused the death of a human being without provocation, felony tampering with evidence, and a misdemeanor count of failing to report a death. This is so sad. This episode is so goddamn sad. I'm going to have to come up with some funny jokes later on to pep you up. May 25th. We are still not even halfway through the year, guys. We need to pick this up. How long? This is going to be a long episode, man. Okay. In Willow Spring, North Carolina, Malia Scott Winbury, a 10-month-old, was killed by 2 Rottweilers. The family dogs attacked Winbury inside her home after her father walked outside the house to move a water sprinkler in the yard. Animal control authorities took control of the dogs. Yeah, the dogs always get put down, and we've discussed it. It's just what happens. I'm sorry. June 9th, Elizabeth her name. We don't have a name of this person, but it occurred in Elizabeth in New Jersey. The undisclosed male was 3 years old. The family dogs killed the boy after he fell out of a window into the backyard. Animal control authorities seized and euthanized the dogs. It was 2 pit bulls there. Okay, this next one has a little more information. The next attack occurred in Marion County in South Carolina. The victim's name was Shamar Jackson. He was sadly 7 years old. He died on June 13th and was attacked by a pack of mixed breed dogs. Jackson was killed while trying to save his chihuahua from a pack of dogs that had escaped from their owner's property. Jackson's 2 older brothers escaped with the chihuahua over a nearby fence, but the dogs pulled down and killed Shamar when he was unable to climb the fence. Law enforcement authorities seized the 5 adult dogs and a puppy from the dog owner's property, and the owner was charged with involuntary manslaughter. On June 19th, in Sayatook, Oklahoma, Rebecca McCurdy died from a dog attack. It was a pit bull. There may have been more than 1 pit bull. She was 28 years old at the time of her death. McCurdy was killed while house sitting and taking care of dogs for a friend who was breeding pit bulls for sale. Sheriff's deputies who arrived to check on McCurdy's welfare found her body in the garage along with several caged dogs, 1 cage toppled over, and signs of a dog attack. The medical examiner confirmed she was killed by a dog attack, and the owner surrendered all the dogs for euthanasia. It's very. I keep repeating it. It is very sad when your dogs get put down, especially since it was just maybe 1 dog that did it, and the rest of them have to die for it as well. But I mean, it happens for a reason. We last week there was a story about a dog or multiple dogs that had behavioral issues, that had nipped people, bitten people, attacked people, and that hadn't been reported, and then they go on to kill people later on. So there is a reason that this happens, as sad as it is. Our next attack happens in Arizona again, in Phoenix. Phoenix is the capital of Arizona, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, the capital and most populated state. I met a guy named Khalid from Arizona, from Phoenix, I think. I met him about 10 years ago in Sydney. He's a legend. I wonder if he's out there still. I wonder if he's still listening. He's a good guy. Anyway, this is one of the cases of an older person being killed. I don't know if I mentioned the date. It was July 6th. Her name was Maria Eliza Sebastian Ruiz. She was 77 years old, and she was killed by 4 Staffordshire Terrier mixers. Ruiz was killed on her own front porch by her neighbor's dog after they escaped from the yard. Animal control authorities seized and euthanized the dogs, which had a history of escaping and biting neighbors, and their owner was charged with negligent homicide. Yeah, what did I just say? There's a reason we do this. Wow, another one from Cock County. Amber Miller. Oh, no, we talked about this. earlier on when I read that news article. Amber Miller. She did die, it turns out. Miller died in a hospital 6 days after being found. Yikes. Okay, yes. Miller died in a hospital 6 days after being found with one of her calves ripped off and her arms barely attached to her body. This was the second fatal dog attack that occurred on the road in 4 months. Tony Aarons on April 1st was the other one that we mentioned. She died, on the 12th of July. She was 22, and she died from an attack from 3 dogs. On July 18th in El Paso, Texas, an undisclosed female who was 59 years old died. She was killed by her daughter's dog while house-sitting at her daughter's house. Both of the dogs had food and water available, and it appeared to be well cared for. The dogs were seized by animal control. On July 18th, the same day as the undisclosed female in Texas died, Emily Carl was 31 years old. She died in Toledo, Ohio. Carl was killed by bite trauma to the neck inflicted by a dog, which was owned by another person who lived in the home. Animal control seized and euthanized the dog. Unless from now on, unless the dogs escape or are not euthanized, whatever, I'm not going to mention it. Assume every single one of these stories, the dogs are surrendered and euthanized, because it's every single one. Okay. In Miller Township in Perry County in Pennsylvania, Rhonda Marie Wagner was 60 years old. She died on July 28th. She was attacked by 3 pit bulls. Wagner was killed and partially eaten by the dogs while she was pet sitting for them for a roommate. A passerby called police when they saw her lying in her front yard with the 3 dogs running loose. I nearly read the same bullshit about them being captured and euthanized. Yeah, but it was with the owner's consent. August 10th, we are getting through the year. In Flatbush, Brooklyn, New York, and I think this is the first New York of the year, Ryan Francis Foster, a 19-month-year-old. She was killed by a Rottweiler. The dog killed Foster after his father left him and 2 older brothers alone with the dog at his parents' apartment while his parents were out of the country. Foster's brothers were uninjured. His father was charged with manslaughter, criminal negligent homicide, and acting in a manner injurious to a child. Yeah, I gotta say that is fair. We're back to Toledo in Ohio, only after a few weeks, it looks like. On August, about less than a month later, on August 12th, Javon Stokes, it was a 26-year-old, was killed in that same town. The dog killed Stokes when he suffered a grand mal seizure. The dog was taken by animal control. That's like the guy who had a heart attack. We have one in Hawaii now as well. April 14th in Hawaiian Paradise Park in Hawaii, Dolores Teresa Oskins, who was 85 years old, that would probably be the oldest person on the list, at least for this year. Dogs attacked Oskins while she was in her neighborhood looking for her lost dogs. She died 22 days after being attacked. Her husband and other family members who went out to help her were also attacked, but they were treated and released. In Wilkes County, North Carolina, Mildred Catherine Vaughn, who was 89 years old. Wow, she just took the crown for oldest victim. Died. She was attacked by a pit bull and a pit bull mix. The dogs attacked Vaughn when she walked out to her mailbox. She was airlifted to the hospital in critical condition and died of her injuries 9 days later. Animal control authorities seized and euthanized the dogs, a female and her 2 offspring that were not yet adult dogs. That was on the 21st of August. A few weeks later, on September 14th, in Lebanon, Indiana, Loretta Mae Moore, 84 years old, was killed by a pack of 5 dogs, including a pit bull, 2 huskies, and 2 unspecified dogs. Moore's adult son found her body when he returned home from work. That's a fucking terrible way to end your day. Moore was partially dismembered, and an autopsy found that she'd been killed by the dogs. Police found blood on the mouths of all the dogs and found a broomstick that was broken to bits and covered in blood. Moore's son owned 4 of the dogs. The 5th was a pit bull that he was fostering on behalf of a pit bull rescue group. Authorities seized all the dogs, but returned them at the owner's request because local laws and ordinances did not allow them to euthanize the dogs without owner's consent if the dogs were killed on the owner's property. Wow, that is a weird law. That's a weird law in Indiana. So if you have a dog in Indiana and it kills your kid in your house, but you don't want the dog put down, it doesn't get put down. I'm not coming down on either side of that argument. I'm just saying it's weird. Back into, not Arizona, Alabama. I saw Phoenix City, and I thought it was Arizona. Phoenix City, I think that is. in Alabama. On September 22nd, Frank Cobb, a 60-year-old, was killed by a pit bull. Phoenix City police responded to a dog attack at 2 a.m. and found Cobb suffering from wounds. Cobb was taken to the local hospital and then to a regional hospital where doctors tried to reattach his limbs, but he died of his injuries. The suspected dog was found dead and sent to a lab for testing. Man, that is, I know this story is going like a lot over time. Like we've already been going for like half an hour, but I'm curious about this. This is it's wild. Okay, we have two articles as references here: WRBL and WTVM. I don't know which one of those is more reputable. They were both published on the same day. Let's just go with this one. Okay, so we got to read this news article. His arms had to be reattached. They tried to reattach his limbs, theoretically meaning his limbs were lipped off. I assume that's what that means. So, Jesus. Okay. Let's read this article and see if it gives us any more. Actually, it looks like there's a video. Let's see if we can listen to the audio of this news report.
A Phoenix City man is dead from a dog attack. This as passers-by rushed to try and rescue the man. Police say they found 70-year-old Frank Cobb suffering from a severe injury to his left arm on 17th Avenue near First Tabernacle Church. After being treated at Piedmont Columbus Regional Hospital, the victim was transferred again and died at an Atlanta hospital from his injuries. We talked to a man who says he tried to save Mr. Cobb during the attack.
Oh, I was walking back from the big cat, man. I heard somebody saying help. It was a dog, but I seen some dogs that I couldn't see them because they was barking, and they black. So I went and tried to help Ray. It was blood everywhere. Like, I was devastated. I'm talking about flabbergasted. But besides the point, I tried to help Red, right? So I grabbed the dog by his neck and by his nose, and I took out running down the street so he could chase me. But he had already seen blood.
Well, police later found a dog on U.S. Highway 431 South, matching the description of that dog that attacked the victim. Police say the dog was hit and killed by a vehicle. Lab testing efforts on the dog are currently underway.
Yeah, right. So, oh God, I just hit the mic. Pretty wild. Let's read. There might be some more information in the actual report. So yeah, Cobb was taken to Piedmont Columbus Regional. However, his wounds were so severe he had to be transported to Grady Memorial Hospital where he died from his injuries. I want to know more about the arms, like the limbs being. It doesn't seem to have it. Yeah, okay. There's not much more information in here apart that we didn't hear in that report. So we'll just move on. Okay, so September 24th, which is only 2 days later from Frank Cobb's death in Myrtle Point, Oregon. And I think Oregon has not been on this list at all, including last week. I don't remember that. Amber Dawn LaBelle, who was 42 years old, a pit bull American bulldog mix attacked her. The 120-pound dog. I don't know pounds because I'm not an idiot. Sorry, Americans, but metric. Come on, catch up. That's a big dog, I assume. Attacked LaBelle when she opened a door to a room in her apartment where the dog had been constrained. LaBelle had been watching the dog for a friend who had closed watching the dog for its owner while the owner was out of town. LaBelle was flown to a regional hospital where she died of her injuries the next day. Police shot and killed the dog when it lunged at them as they arrived. That's fucking brutal. My God. Okay. A week later, October 3rd, we are getting through the year, guys. In Akron, Ohio, another 16-month-old baby, I guess, died. Their name was Cave Luis Calderon. One or two dogs became agitated and attacked the victim while her uncle was standing at the front door having an argument with a woman. One of the dogs had broken through the front door and attacked a mail carrier 4 months earlier. See, this is what we say. You have to report when your fucking animals attack people. And when they do, there needs to be some sort of consequence, I'm afraid. I think the more I read these stories, the more I'm coming down on the side of, like, it's sad, it's devastating. I know you love the dog. I love the dog too. It bit a fucking dude's neck off. So we have to do something. It can't just be allowed to happen again. Maybe we need a strike system, but once the dog attacks someone, it can only ever be inside, or it has to wear a muzzle. I don't know the answer, but it's crazy. It's so bad. On October 18th, in Matthews, Indiana, a 69-year-old named Kathleen Bertram was killed. The dog bit down on Bertram's throat after she fell out of a chair while holding her 3-year-old granddaughter. Family members pulled the dog away and called rescue personnel, who found Bertram bleeding from both sides of her neck and administered CPR, but they declared Bertram dead at the scene. 1 day later, on October 19th, in Kodak, Tennessee, Bentley Parker, who was a 7-month-old, was attacked by a St. Bernard. The victim's family was visiting his grandmother when the family dog killed him and attacked his grandmother, who was trying to defend him. The dog was killed by law enforcement authorities when it acted aggressively towards rescue personnel responding to the incident. Another day, look, another streak here. We've got 18th, 19th, and now the 20th of October. In Creek County, Oklahoma, a 7-year-old boy named James McNeils was killed by a Sheltie Corgi mix. That's the first time we've had that on the list for sure. The victim's body was found in his own backyard, and the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife and Conservation determined that he'd been attacked by a dog, which was seized by animal control authorities. The family had taken the dog in 3 weeks earlier as a stray. The same things keep popping up, guys. On the 10th of November, an undisclosed male who was... Oh, fuck. Guys, this is a sad one. Yeah. We don't have a name, because this is an 8-day-old baby. 8 days. And I don't know. This is just conjecture. I would assume it didn't have a name, because he hadn't been alive long enough to have a name. That's wild. I'm getting weirdly emotional about this one. I'm sorry. I don't know why. In Kenley, North Carolina, a pit bull attacked this 8-day-old baby. The victim's family had taken in the dog as a stray a few days before the attack. Animal control authorities seized the dog and announced it would be euthanized. There's nothing to say there. That's just brutal. And the family is just trying to be good Samaritans, right? Like they've been punished for trying to do the right thing. Yeah. Moving on. Let's move on. That one was too sad. That was almost too sad for this podcast. All-time low. The vibe is at an all-time low now, guys. Okay. November 19th in Houston, Texas, Tiffany L. Frangigone, I don't know how to pronounce that, 48 years old, was killed. The victim was found in her backyard with puncture wounds in her neck. Police believe she'd released her dogs into the backyard. The dogs began fighting through a fence with the neighbor's dogs, and her dogs killed her when she tried to intervene. The victim's husband turned the dogs over to animal control authorities for euthanasia, and the Harris County Institute of Forensic Science later ruled her death was accidental due to blunt force trauma of the neck with penetrating injuries and mechanical asphyxiation. 3 days later, November 22nd, in Mesilla Park, New Mexico, Avery Colin Jackson Dunphy, a 6-year-old boy, died. A pack of 6 dogs attacked. These dogs include Border Collie mixes and Shepherd mixes. The victim was killed at his grandfather's home when he walked into a dog pen containing 6 dogs, including a female and her 2 adolescent offspring, which the grandfather was fostering on behalf of the local municipal pound, the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. In a police report, Dona Ana County Animal Control described the dogs as Shepherd mixes and Border Collie mixes. Wow, we've gone into December now, guys. So there's only 5 more attacks. 5 attacks that occurred in December, ranging from December 6th through to December 30th. We're nearly there, guys. Hang in there, please. Don't start crying. December 6th, Franklin County, Missouri. Lean, L-E-A-N-N. I'm just gonna say that's Lean. Lean Gratzer, 61-year-old, died from an attack from a pit bull, or 2 pit bulls, and a mixed breed. The victim's body was found in the yard outside the home of her adult daughter, which was next to the victim's home. The daughter and her roommate owned all of the dogs involved, which were euthanized by a local veterinarian with an owner's agreement. On December 12th, Lame Deer, Montana was the location, and the name of the victim was Duke Little Whirlwind. What? Duke Little Whirlwind. Is that like a Native American name or something? Duke Little Whirlwind. I don't know. I liked it. The victim was 58 years old. The dogs killed the victim while he was walking his bicycle to his brother's house. The dogs were shot and killed by their owners the next day after law enforcement authorities declined to take action. Wait, what? The dogs were shot and killed. So the authorities refused to take action on the dogs, and so the owner was forced to kill their own dog. I mean, that's brutal. I have to say, like, I don't know the lead up to this attack. I don't know if they were not properly enclosed or whatever. Assuming the owners had no negligence there, I've got to say that I like these guys. I mean, they had to kill the dog. It's obviously sad. I'm not saying it's great, but they took it into their own hands. You know, they recognized that the dogs had to be put down, and if the state wasn't going to do it for them, that they would take care of it. That obviously is a heartbreaking thing to do. So, I think credit where it's due. I think that's probably the right thing to do. 3 more, guys. December 16th in Bowler, Wisconsin, a woman named Heather Pingle. I'm so sorry, Heather Pingle, 35 years old, was killed by a pit bull. The victim was killed by the family pet dog. That's to be expected. The victim was protecting her son, who was being attacked by the dog when the dog turned on her. So she died as a hero. Damn. On December 28th, I don't know. I think this is La Puente. That sounds right. La Puente, California. Karen Drusilla Rosa Madrid was killed by a cane corso. 4 of them. We haven't heard that breed on this list before, so let me just read. The cane corso is an Italian breed of mastiff. Oh, the mastiffs are huge. They're usually kept as a companion dog or guard dog. It was also used to protect livestock. In the past, it was used for hunting large game and also to herd cattle. The 26-year-old was killed by 4 of those dogs. The victim was killed by her sister's family dog in her sister's home where she was living with her 6-year-old son. The victim had forgotten her house keys and returned home to get them, and the dogs attacked her when she climbed in a window. The 4 dogs were seized by animal control authorities and euthanized. Jesus. Last one, guys. The final attack of the 2021 year. It occurred 2 days before the year ended on December 30th in Chicago, Illinois. We don't know the victim's name, but he was a male, and he was 34 years old. He died from an attack from a pit bull and an American bully. And the American bully, hasn't come up on our thing, but the American bully is a modern breed of dog that was developed as a companion dog, recognized as a breed in 2004. So it's a new breed. That's interesting. The victim was found by police in the living room of a home. The victim had visible bite marks, and an autopsy determined the man died of multiple injuries from a dog mauling. Yeah. So, look, obviously, a really sad list to go through. A lot of children, a lot of old people. All of these people didn't deserve to go the way they went. And, thoughts go with their families. Please remember, this isn't a list. This isn't like the Yellowstone National Park stories that occurred 100 years ago, okay? These are people who died within the last 24 months, right? The victims' families are going to be still mourning. And I would just like to say, like, in the off chance that any of them ever listen to this, I'm obviously very sorry that this has happened. And I guess I would just want to clarify any. I hope nothing I've said has become off as flippant. I'm just kind of reading off the cuff, and a lot of these stories, honestly, they kind of blow me away in how brutal they are and how sad they are. So they're my genuine reactions, but I hope I haven't come up as flippant. And forgive me if they have. Obviously thoughts go to all those victims and their families, and they would still be grieving. So we hope that hope that they're doing okay. Guys, we are going to take a break. Moving on, let's talk about Beware the Dog. Let's talk about dog attacks in the United States. So, a few things that we've discovered in the last couple of episodes, some common factors. So, as we mentioned last week, the median age of people that get attacked, it usually lies between people who are born like 0 years old to 10 years old, and then people who are like 65 plus. I'd say close to like 65% of all attacks happen to those kinds of people. And then you do find there are people who are, in the prime of their life, 20, 30, 40, sometimes even 50, that get attacked by dogs and can't fight them off. But they are in the minority, I find. Also, the major dog breeds that are a threat are pit bulls. 80%, I would say, 80% plus have been pit bulls or pit bull crosses. But other dogs have been, responsible for a fair few attacks. German Shepherds have been some of them. And a lot of mixed breeds. A lot of times, it's also packs of dogs of different breeds as well, which is a huge threat. And of course, like you don't just die of, the wounds inflicted by a dog attack, like the blood loss, although of course that is sometimes what happens. A lot of times for older patients, they have heart attacks while they are being attacked. And then, the diseases that can come from a dog attack, from the bites when they become infected, that's like meningitis, septic shock, endocarditis sometimes as well. I think it's estimated it's about 3% to 18% of the dog bites become infected. And obviously children have a greater risk of death there as well as old people. So yeah, there you go. So that's a little bit of background for you. We are going to finish off our list today. It has been a pretty good series. A lot sadder than I was anticipating. I don't know why I found this just sadder, but I am looking through here. Oh, there's the ambulance to take. What the fuck is going on up there? Yeah, that's the ambulance taking the crazy people to the asylum. Okay, yeah, this list actually seems a bit shorter than the lists from last couple of weeks, so we might end up with a shorter episode. We'll see. So, let's get into it. Let's play some theme music, and we'll jump into part 3 of Beware the Dog. So the first death from a dog attack in the United States occurred on January 25th, so 25 days into the year, in Florida, in a town called Gulf Breeze, which sounds lovely, honestly. Unfortunately, this was a 3-month-old person. Her name was Charlotte Holman, and she was killed by a French Mastiff mix. A lot of times we find that these are pets that have killed the children, and sadly, I believe in this case that is that is the case. What's happened here? So Holman was left unattended with the family pet while her mother went to the bathroom. Shortly after, her mother heard the sounds of the dog biting Holman's head and intervened. She called emergency medical services, and the child was taken to Gulf Breeze Hospital, where she was pronounced dead. It was determined she'd died of multiple bite force traumatic injuries to the head. The death was ruled accidental. The family reported that the dog Roxy had no history of aggressive behavior prior to that day. 2 days later, in Las Cruces, I believe that's how you pronounce that, Las Cruces, New Mexico, Syed Al-Anzani was a 59-year-old who died on January 27th. He was attacked by 2 German Shepherds. I think I mispronounced that, sorry. Al-Anazi died in the hospital on the 27th of January 2022 after being attacked by 2 dogs named Jack and Max, of which visible bite marks could be seen on his legs. Witnesses saw Al-Anazi fleeing from the 2 dogs before being tackled and mauled. A neighbor came to beat off one of the animals with a cane. The dog, I'm resisting the urge to make a beat-off joke. Yes, that's correct. If it popped into your mind too, we're bad people together. The dog's owner was given criminal charges for violating county ordinances, and Jack and Max were later euthanized. As we sort of discovered last week, the vast majority of these cases, like 95% of them, the dogs are euthanized and the owners are charged with some sort of criminal offense. Usually, not locking up their dogs properly or possessing a dog that is actually banned in that county. So that is going to be a common thread probably in today's episode too. Another 2 days later. So this year in 2022, we're not having a very good start. Every 2 days, a person dies from a dog attack so far. On January 29th in Virginia, in a town called Waynesboro, Olivia Grace Floyd was a 7-year-old girl who was killed by a Rottweiler. Floyd was attacked and killed by a 120-pound Rottweiler on January 29th. Floyd was transported to Augusta Health after the attack and later succumbed to her injuries. An adult woman was also injured, but was treated for her injuries in the hospital and was later released. The dog was seized by law enforcement authorities and euthanized. In May of 2022, a grand jury indicted the owners, who were the girl's grandmother and step-grandfather, on charges of murder, involuntary manslaughter, reckless endangerment of a child, child abuse, and failure to control a dangerous dog. The girl's parents were also charged with neglect. I'm interested to see what happened there, so we might do a little bit of investigating. There is a source here, so we will open that up and we'll see what we can find. Yes, okay, so there is a news article, and the headline is "Murder Charges Filed Against Wadesboro Couple After 7-Year-Old Girl Killed by Dog." I will say, murder charges are quite severe. Okay, I fucking can't even access. I'm not paying for this website, so we're going to have to find it on our own. Murder charges are interesting. Like manslaughter, I wouldn't be surprised by, but to charge the grandparents with murder for the death of the girl from the dog, to me, that's surprising. There was only one incident from this list that I can recall where a murder charge, I think, would probably be expected. And that was the one, I can't remember the names of the people or where it was, but basically it was a woman who was attacking a man and encouraging her dog to attack him as well. So she was beating him up and, basically encouraging her pit bull or Rottweiler to do the same thing. And he died. Obviously there, I think murder charges would be called for. That's very interesting. Maybe Virginia has different laws regarding this kind of stuff, or maybe their attorney general is a lot harsher. I'm not sure. That is interesting. But obviously I'm not paying for the for the website to tell me what happened. So I'm sure if you're really interested in that, you can find out. Another 2 days later, or maybe it's 3 days. How many days are in January? Doesn't really matter. February 1st, in Columbia, Mississippi, Lola Jade Farr was a 1-year-old who was killed by a pit bull. Farr suffered head, facial, and neck injuries when a dog attacked her at the home of her aunt. She was sent via Medivac to a hospital where she died of her injuries 5 days later on February 6th. Yeah, really sad. The next attack, thankfully, I guess, didn't occur 2 days later, so we have broken that pattern, but it did occur on February 17th. The victim this time was a 71-year-old, and their name was Pam Robb in Fort Lauderdale in Florida. So that's the second time Florida has been on this list. They were attacked by a bully mix, which I think is just like a bulldog, an American bulldog. The American bulldog bully is a modern breed of dog that was developed as a companion dog and originally standardized and recognized as a breed in 2004. So it's a new breed. There you go. It looks kind of like a Staffy or a little bit like a pit bull, I think. Yeah, an American bully was the dog that did this, and I think that might be the first time that's been on this list as well. Rob was a 71-year-old retired high school teacher working as an animal shelter volunteer at the 100-plus abandoned dogs of Everglades, Florida shelter, hailing from Oakland Park, Florida. And I think Oakland Park is where that shooting happened. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hailing from Oakland Park, Florida, Rob's wife, Angie Anobile, quoted that Rob had been working with a mixed breed named Gladys since she arrived in January. Gladys had been featured on the shelter's Facebook page, being rescued after sitting on a canal bank on an empty field and was coaxed to safety by rescuers with chicken. The shelter continued to post videos of Gladys describing her recovery as slow and steady. Annabelle, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that right, it's a weird, Annabelle, maybe, recounted that Rob had been pulled to the ground by the dog and attacked. Another woman, Jan Halas Stenger, attempted to help Rob and received minor injuries. Police received an emergency call to the scene at 10:54 a.m., where Rob was taken to a hospital and later died of her injuries. Gladys was later euthanized. That's sad, man. They were trying to use Gladys as kind of like a role model dog, basically, to show, this is how you really rehabilitate a dog. Sad. Bit of a social media sensation, I think. And then, for it to go like this. There's lots of animals, which we're probably going to cover in the future, like celebrity animals that were used in movies and stuff like that, that did turn on their owners and kill them. That might be a separate episode for later down the line. But for now, we are going to continue on our list. February 23rd, 6 days after Rob was killed, in Texas this time, in a place called Baytown, Drew Parker was a 4-year-old and was attacked by 4 pit bulls. Wow. The boy was mauled at his aunt's sorry. Yeah, the boy was mauled by his aunt's 4 dogs and died at the hospital. The neighbors had no previous problems with the dogs, which was seized by animal control authorities. Now, there is almost an entire month's gap between the next attack, which, I mean, that's such a low bar that we're talking about, like, the length of time between attacks, but that's kind of where we are at this list. It's a very sad list, and these happen at great frequency, so I guess when you do get a little bit of reprieve, that is a small blessing. So yeah, nearly a month later. I thought I turned you off, phone. Why are you doing this? Sorry, it's got a text. It was from someone telling me to feel better soon, so that was lovely. Thank you. I don't think they listen to the show, so it doesn't matter who. I'm not going to name them. They don't get the thanks. They have to listen to the pod. Anyway, a month later, in the state of Georgia, in a town called Martinez, Serenity Garrett was a 7-month-old who was killed on March 22nd by an American Bulldog / Great Pyrenees mix. I cannot recall if we've had Great Pyrenees on the... I do not think we have. The Pyrenees Mountain Dog, just for a bit of background, is a breed of livestock guardian dog from France, where it is commonly called the Pato. The breed comes from the French side of the Pyrenees Mountains that separates France and Spain. There you go. Anyway, the girl was attacked by these dogs while being watched by her great-grandmother, who was renting a room from the dog's owners who were absent at the time. The girl died after being brought to a local hospital where the great-grandmother was treated for serious injuries she received while trying to rescue the girl. The great-grandmother, who was watching the dog on behalf of the owners, was charged with second-degree murder and possession of methamphetamine. Okay. Took a bit of a fucking left turn there at the end, didn't it? And another person charged with the murder. That is interesting. That's wild. Only 5 days later was the next attack, and we actually don't know the breed of the dog that did this, but it was at least one dog. The victim was a 6-year-old boy named Francis Kavanaugh, and this attack occurred in North Dakota on March 27th in a town called Fort Trotton. The boy's body was found in his housing development, and investigators confirmed he'd been killed by at least one dog. That is... that's obviously very sad. It sounds like he probably didn't have a great life when he was alive. Yeah, not much else to add. A lot of these stories really speak for themselves. Let's talk about our next victim. Again, we're going back to a period where almost there's an attack a day in this country. The day after, March 28th, only 24 hours after Francis Kavanaugh died, a 27-year-old named Charlie Morgan, they died too. And this is probably the first, I guess, young person, not a child, not an old person, the first kind of middle-aged, I guess, person to die. 27, that's only 2 years younger than me. And we've spoken in previously how, like, I don't know, if you're a 27-year-old, you probably think you can take on a dog, and maybe you can, but this person was attacked by a pack of dogs, mixed breed pack. They were killed in Iowa, in a Meskwaki settlement. It was called Meskwaki Settlement. I believe that's like a Native American settlement. The woman was killed near the Meskwaki Tribal Center, by a large pack of mixed breed dogs. Law enforcement authorities later announced the dogs had been tracked down and killed. That's another, semi-regular occurrence. I wouldn't say it happens a lot, like statistically more than any other group, but I have noticed as we've been going through this list, Native American settlements are another place where these things have seemed to happen. Yeah, anyway. Let's move on. Okay, so only 2 days after that, again, not a great stretch of time, in Tellico Village in Tennessee. This person, we don't know what their name was, we don't know what their age was, but they were killed by a Dutch Shepherd. I'm imagining that's closely related to a German Shepherd, but it's from Dutchland, from Holland, the Netherlands. The woman was killed by a highly trained personal protection dog that had been trained by her husband. This is a quote, a long time and very accomplished canine trainer. Law enforcement authorities shot and killed the dog, which reacted aggressively as they approached to rescue the victim. That's probably the first time we've had not a rescue dog, but like a canine protection unit dog on this list as well. Those animals are really like super well trained, like better trained than most kids. I work with a lot of young people in my life, like in my real job, in youth arts, and some of those dogs are very well trained. I will just say that. Okay, we at least have a few days, about a week here, until the next death. It was an 84-year-old this time, so again, an elderly person. This time in the town of Billings in Montana. Billings apparently is the largest city in Montana, which I didn't know because I'm pretty sure it's not the capital of Montana. What is the capital of Montana? I'm just curious because I'm interested in state capitals. Billings is the largest state in Montana, but the capital of Montana is Helena. There you go. You're all from America who are listening to this probably, so you knew that, but for me, this is interesting. Anyway, her name, the victim's name, Melita Hain, 84 years old and was killed by at least 3 mixed-bred dogs. The woman was attacked by 3 large dogs and died on April 16th of complications from multiple dog bites. Law enforcement authorities seized the dog. That's 8 days. That's quite a long time. That is 8 days. 8 days from attack to death. That might be the longest gap that I remember on this list. It sounds to me like it's likely she died from infection from the bites, which, we talked about that earlier. Sepsis, septic shock, endocarditis, those kinds of things can sneak through. There is this myth that a dog's mouth is cleaner than a human mouth, but that's actually not true, especially if these are wild dogs as well. When you do get bitten, it's important to, get checked out for, not just rabies, but also all other kinds of diseases that you can get from a dog bite. On April 21st, in the town of Newberry, in South Carolina, Erin Beach, a 46-year-old woman, was killed by an unknown breed of dog. She was killed by her own dog, which was shot and killed by law enforcement authorities when it showed aggressive behavior to them when they arrived to rescue the victim. Friends and family said the dog had no history of aggression. Little sip of water there. 3 days later, Oklahoma, Newalla, Oklahoma, Anita Mears, a 61-year-old, was killed by a pack of dogs. Mears was killed by a pack of canines in her yard. Law enforcement authorities initially thought she was the victim of a stabbing, but the medical examiner found that she'd been killed by multiple dogs. Mears' own dog was also injured in the attack. That's really sad. Damn. Literally the day after, in Illinois, Kewanee, Illinois, Juan Ruiz, 66 years old, was killed by a pit bull. He was killed at home by his own dog when he broke up a fight between his dog and another dog. Ruiz was able to contact his family, but decided not to go to a hospital and died a few hours later. Law enforcement authorities impounded both dogs, and Ruiz's dog was euthanized. That's really sad. Jesus. Let's power on through before we think too hard about the sadness. April 29th in Red Bay, Alabama, Jacqueline Summer Beard, 58 years old. She died from a pack of 7 dogs. Jesus, 7. Oh, that's not a good way to go. Beard was an Alabama Department of Public Health employee, and she was mauled by a pack of dogs while following up on a previously non-fatal dog attack. Several of the dogs were euthanized, and the owner was charged with manslaughter. We're into May now. 14 days into May, Austin, Texas. There is not a lot of information about this. It's an undisclosed victim of undisclosed age, and we do not know the type of dog. But the dog did attack and kill a homeless man in the south part of the city. First responders arrived in the area at 1:51 a.m., and the man was pronounced dead a short time later. On May 22nd, the next death occurred. This time it was from a Labrador retriever, and I think this is the first time a lab has been on the list. Labradors are famously great household pets, probably one of the friendliest dog breeds ever. Very gentle, very good with kids, so it is surprising that this dog is up there. This death occurred in Cullman County in Alabama, and the victim's name was Rhonda Purcell. She was 57 years old. Rhonda Purcell was attacked and killed by 2 dogs that had escaped from the neighbor's fenced-in backyard. The neighbor, who was friends with the victim, went outside when he heard a commotion and found the victim, who was still alive, lying next to a car. The neighbor brought the victim to a hospital where she died a short time later. Cullman County officials described the dogs as lab mixes. Yeah. Very surprising. Labradors are really good dogs. It's why you don't hear a lot of those stories involving them. So something obviously went wrong there. Anyway, in June 3rd, actually I think May only had a couple attacks there. May only had 2 attacks. That's great. Good job, May. June 3rd, In Sevier County, Tennessee, Debbie Boyd was killed by a Rottweiler. She was 70 years old at the time of her death. Debbie was attacked and killed by at least one of her 2 Rottweilers. She was found deceased in her home with numerous dog bite-related injuries. A small child who was also in the home was not injured. That is, that's a small silver lining there. Small saving grace. That was the only attack in June. Well, the only fatal attack in June, which is fantastic. It seems like the attacks are slowing down throughout the year, which is obviously good, or they are just not being reported as frequently, which is also the other option. This one occurred nearly 2 months later at the end of July in California. The first time that they've been on this list, at least for 2022, in the town called Selma, California. The victim was 59 years old. His name was Richard Barry, and he was killed by 5 English bulldogs. It's weird to have 5 English bulldogs, but let's see what happened. Richard was attacked and killed by a pack of 5 English bulldogs that had escaped from a nearby residence while he was out for a walk in his neighborhood. 2 family members witnessed the attack while it was in progress, but weren't able to save the victim nor stop the attack. The dogs were eventually captured by animal control to be quarantined and tested for rabies. I don't know who's keeping 5 English bulldogs, but if you know anyone who has 5 bulldogs, especially English bulldogs, you need to look into that friend. There's something not right. No hate to English bulldogs, but to have 5 of them, something's going on. August 5th, again in California, in how do I say this? Castiac, California. It's an unincorporated community in the northwestern part of Los Angeles County. Oh, so it's in LA. Robert Stevens, a 62-year-old, was killed by a cane corso. That's another dog we haven't heard on this list. What is a cane corso? Cane corso is an Italian breed of mastiff. It is usually kept as a companion dog or guard dog. It may also be used to protect livestock. In the past, it was also used to hunt large game and also to herd cattle. There you go. Robert was attacked and killed by his own dog. He rescued the dog about 5 years prior to the attack, which occurred in his house. According to the police, the attack was unprovoked. Sounds like the police didn't have enough information to do a really good investigation there, because I just don't think this stuff happens unprovoked. Even if it's unintentional provocation, there's something that happens. Anyway, August 15th, 10 days later, in Iowa, in a town called Rossi. Rossi is a city in Clay County, Iowa. Mindy, I'm sorry I'm pronouncing the names really badly today. I'm a bit sick. Kipe, I think her name is. Kipe? K-I-E-P-E. Mindy Kipe, 43 years old, was killed by 5 Great Danes. Holy crap. Great Danes are massive, guys. Mindy was attacked and killed by her 5 Great Danes. Her body was discovered in a ditch a short distance from a farm. All 5 of the dogs had been euthanized. The next attack occurred in Putnam, Florida. Her name was Pamela Jane Rock. She died on August 21st at the age of 61. Another pack of 5 dogs were the culprits. A group of 5 dogs that had escaped from their backyard attacked and killed a postal worker whose vehicle had broken down. People rushed to Rock's aid after hearing her screams, but her wounds were fatal and she died the following day at a trauma center in Gainesville. Gainesville. Is Gainesville, Florida, the Gainesville that serial killer was from? I don't know. I've been listening to a lot of true crime. Anyway, one of her arms had been amputated before her death. Neighbors reported the dogs had a history of breaking free from their backyard and aggressive behavior. Police said there is a possibility of criminal charges being pressed against the owner, and the animals involved would be euthanized. It's worth mentioning now that we are these attacks are occurring within the last 12 months. Actually, some of these within the last 6 months. So the criminal investigations are likely still ongoing. These aren't quick things that happen. So if the stories seem to not have great closure or finalized endings, that's probably why. It's probably because they're still under investigation. We skip now to October of 2022 in Memphis, Tennessee. Hollis Dean Lily Jane. This is 2 victims. Wow. This is rare for this list. 2 victims. Hollis Dean and Lily Jane. Hollis was 5 months old and Lily Jane was 2 months old, and they were attacked by 2 pit bulls. Two pit bulls owned by the family attacked and killed Hollis Dean and Lily Jane over the course of 10 minutes. Their mother attempted to shield them from the dogs and suffered extensive injuries over her entire body and face, but was transported to a local hospital and survived. Both dogs were euthanized the next day. Man, I'm not a parent. I probably never will be. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. If you're a parent, I can only imagine you wish you died instead of your kids. I'm sure that she must live with a tremendous amount of guilt and pain. That's very sad. 2 days later, another attack occurred in Baldy Mesa, California. The victim's name was Soon Han, 80 years old, and was killed by two Dogo Argentinos. The Dogo Argentinos is an Argentinian breed, yeah, go figure, of large dog of the Mastiff type. It was bred in the early 20th century in central Argentina, primarily for dog fighting, but also for hunting large game such as pecaries and pumas. Wow. So a dog that was bred to take down mountain lions, yeah, probably not a great pet. Two of these Dogo Argentinos attacked the victim while she was out on a morning walk in the vicinity of Vinton Street. The dogs were both loose and the owner has since been located. The dogs were being held by San Bernardino County Animal Control pending further investigation. There's only 2 more deaths that occurred in 2022, so it is a smaller list. The next one occurred on October 24th, which is only 6 days before my birthday last year. So for me, that's a good way of contextualizing the time frame here. It was in Missouri, in the town of Excelsior Springs. And unfortunately, we don't have much information. We do not know the name of the victim. We do know that they were an adult male, but we don't know their exact age. We do know that they were killed by an English Mastiff and a German Shepherd. So look at that. The English and the Germans teaming up. That's a bad joke. I apologize. A delivery driver was found dead in a yard after an unattended Amazon van was reported to authorities. The dogs were aggressive as the deputies approached, so both dogs were shot and killed. The homeowners were out of town at the time of the attack. Yeah, damn. An Amazon delivery driver. There you go. That probably made the news in a lot of places. And the final death occurred on December 14th in Cave Springs, Arkansas. We're ending 2022 on a really, really bad note because this victim is the youngest victim on the list for the year and potentially for the entire list. We don't have a name. She was 4 days old. And there was a young victim last week. My theory as to why she doesn't have a name is because she was too young to have one. The parents may not have decided yet. That's just conjecture, but that's, that makes sense. This little girl was killed by a husky. The family dog bit the newborn in the head and penetrated the skull. The infant was taken to hospital where she later died. There you go. Now, I did check the 2023 list when I started the series, and there were no deaths. But yes, there are deaths. And I will, again, these have all been recent, but I will warn you, the most recent death on this list happened 9 days ago from today. So just over a week. So, it's likely that this death happened between recording of these episodes. And by the time this episode comes out, there might be another death on this list as well. So there you go. We'll talk about 2023 really quickly now as well. On January 6th, in Eastern Baton Rouge Parish in Louisiana, an undisclosed girl who was 7 years old was killed by a pit bull. On January 6th, the 7-year-old girl was mauled by a pit bull at Kendallwood Road. Police deputies were called around 6:35 p.m. to assist the emergency medical services and the fire department at the scene of the attack. The girl was rushed to the hospital in critical condition where she would later die. It was also announced that the pit bull would be euthanized after being checked for rabies the same day of the attack. On January 21st, in Fort Hall Reservation, Idaho, and I believe this reservation is a Native American reservation, a 7-year-old male, we don't have a name, was killed by 4 dogs, 2 Rottweilers and 2 mixed breeds. A mother and a 7-year-old boy were attacked by 4 dogs. The boy did not survive his injuries. The 4 dogs were shot by tribal authorities. And the final death on this list for 2023, and the list in general, and for our entire Beware the Dog series, like I said, it occurred 9 days ago from recording, February 1st, Acre Homes area in Houston, Texas. The victim was 69 years old. He was an unidentified male. We do not know the name. He was attacked by a Staffordshire Terrier mix. On February 1st, a 69-year-old man heard a commotion in his backyard. He saw that 2 dogs had gotten into his backyard through a hole in the fence and began attacking his small dog. When he tried to intervene, the dogs attacked him. When police arrived, the dogs were still mauling the man. A shot was fired at one of the dogs when it tried to attack one of the officers. The attack victim died. And that's our list, guys. That is the entirety of the Beware the Dog series. We've gone through every single recorded fatality of a dog attack since the year 2020. And as I was reading through this, I was thinking, man, like, we've just done 3 full-length episodes on this. When we did the bear attacks, right, we did 4 full-length episodes. But we were doing, we had recordings, and the list of the victims went back to like the 1700s, sometimes even earlier. We went through entire decades at a time. This time we were going year by year. So it just goes to show you how many people are attacked by dogs every year. And that's just in the US as well. If this was a worldwide list, this series would never end. So that's why it's kind of good that this list, for some reason, only starts in 2020. If we were to ever find a resource that had every death going back to the beginning of recorded history, we would never end. It would just be its own podcast. So, yeah, that is it for this series. I hope you enjoyed it as much as you can enjoy it. I hope you at least found it educational. Obviously, a lot of really truly sad stories, some really bizarre stories that we've gone through as well, and some really I mean, like, I guess one of the takeaways I would take is as much death and suffering as there is in this list, it also shines a light on how many heroes there are as well. So many of these animal attacks are, the victims were intervening. They were trying to save their own dog, or they were trying to break up a fight from a dog, or they were trying to save another victim from the dog attack. And so those people really are heroes. The vast majority of these attacks were from pets. And no one expects to be killed by your own pet. So, yeah, be careful with your dogs out there. Like, just another little disclaimer. I love dogs. I'm a big dog person. I love them. But, they are man's best friend, but, like, not all of them. You know what I mean? So if you do see a wild dog or a dog in your neighborhood that you don't know, even if you do know them, it's always wise to give them a wide berth and to look at their body language. Don't approach them if you don't know them. Don't approach them if they look suspicious. Don't approach them if they look aggressive. And if it's sad, but if a dog is attacking another dog or another animal, I would probably caution you to not step in and help, because you can very easily become the victim as well. If it's another person being attacked, I guess really the same thing. It's, you have to be aware of what you're stepping up to, because it could be, it could be the end of you.